Welcome to the National Pulse. I'm Raheem Kassam, editor-in-chief of thenationalpulse.com, a news site you may have heard of, especially as a result of this morning's scoops. We'll be getting into all of them over the course of the show, and we'll break some new news here in this hour. I'm delighted to be joined by the founder and editor-in-chief of Just the News. John Solomon joins me in studio. John, thank you for taking the time out.
Great to be with you.
Just to give people an idea of, firstly, there's so much news that I forgot to put a tie on today.
I was going to say a new look.
I didn't even have the time to peruse my extensive tie collection.
That's right.
To pick something out today. And there's so much breaking news that literally as we were about to come on air, I just shouted at a producer, let's get John Solomon in here, because you and I are both breaking news of the same variety, from the same sort of, milieu, the hard drive from hell, the laptop from hell. And I will be playing the clip very shortly that we pulled out from Hunter Biden's voice memos on the drive.
Right.
Now, the reason we went after these, John, is because there was still all these people going, this isn't his drive, there's no proof of that, those pictures could have been stolen or manipulated or whatever. Yeah. So I thought to myself, well, let's look in the voice memos. Let's see if there's something, memo to self, know. And sure enough, there was a memo to self. In fact, there were lots of memos to self, and we'll be publishing more of them over the next couple of days. But this memo to self in particular was called Most Genius S Ever. And I got to tell you, it was the most genius S ever if you're the Trump campaign.
Yeah.
Or if you're a reporter digging into Hunter Biden. So I want to roll the clip for you guys now and for the audience at home, in case you missed it on the War Room this morning. Hunter Biden, from Hunter Biden's laptop, exclusive to the National Pulse. Let's roll it.
I get calls from my father to tell me that the New York Times is calling, but my old partner Eric, who literally has done me harm for I don't know how long, is the one taking the calls because my father will not stop sending the calls to Eric. I have another New York Times reporter calling about my representation of literally, Dr. Patrick Koh, the spy chief of China, who started the company that my partner, who was worth $323 billion, founded, and is now missing. The richest man in the world is missing, who was my partner. He was missing since I last saw him in his $58 million apartment and signed a $4 billion deal to build the largest LNG port in the world. And I am receiving calls from the Southern District of New York, from the U.S. Attorney himself. My best friend in business, Devin, has named me as a witness without telling me in a criminal case. And my father, without telling me.
What is that, a minute odd long? And how much did we find out there, John? The New York Times is calling him, asking his representation about Patrick Koh. He talks about his partnership with the effing spy chief of China. He talks about being the richest man in the world who's missing, who was my partner. He talks about building the largest effing LNG port in the world. He's saying the SDNY, the Southern District of New York, and the U.S. Attorney are calling him. His best friend in business, Devin Archer, named him as a witness, and his father, and named Joe Biden as a witness without telling him. That's an awful lot to divulge over the course of a minute and 12 seconds. What does this tell us?
Well, first off, whoever makes that own recording of themselves has got their own issues. I mean, it's basically a self-incriminating tape, and you wonder, why did he do it? Was he crying out for help? We don't know. We'll never figure that out. But what do we know the time that this occurs from? He was in business with someone who's now a convicted felon, Devin Archer. Devin Archer was facing trial. He's going to do the power play. We're going to try to drag Joe Biden and Hunter Biden into this case, and he's panicking over this moment. And what you see in this tape recording and in the text messages that we divulged today is that the whole gig that Hunter Biden had, which was smooth sailing from 2011 to 2016, while his dad is vice president, it's easy to make money from foreign governments. Easy access, easy money. Everybody's going to bow to you. The second his dad leaves office, the thing starts falling apart. His partner gets nabbed. He's facing FBI, U.S. Attorney prosecution. The Burisma gang doesn't want to be paying him any more money. He's trying to save his last amount of money. It all falls apart once you're out of power, and that's what the influence peddling game is. When you're in, it's easy to make money. When you're out, you start to panic that things fall apart, and that's why the Biden family has so much problems as they head into this final week of the election.
And this goes on to some of the news that you guys are breaking over at Just the News as well. And ladies and gentlemen, if justthenews.com isn't yet, and I'm sure for most of you it is, part of your daily reading, you've got to make sure it's bookmarked. You've got to make sure it's one of the first sites you go to every morning. We've got about a minute to break here, John, but then we'll come back. I want to dive into this even more. But you just mentioned there some of the last income that Hunter Biden had. Tell us more.
Yep. So in 2017, he's talking to one of his business partners, Tony Bobolinsky, a man who's become quite famous in the last week. And Bobolinsky's saying, hey, we got this China deal. Why aren't you focusing on it? And he drops another F-bomb like we just heard in that great tape that you made public. And he says, listen, you don't understand. I'm about to lose this deal with Burisma. It's the last money I'm going to get from this Ukraine company. I'm focused on that. I really don't care about your China deal. And you can kind of see a guy that is panicked about losing his financial kingdom and all of his political influence.
Yeah, that's right. And you can also see in some of the emails over the course of time when Joe Biden's about to leave office, they're kind of all scrambling to figure out how they get appointments. We broke one of those stories the other day. Eric Schwerin getting an appointment. Missy Owens is asking for an appointment. Valerie was asking for an appointment and got one, by the way. We're going to come back in just a second because I want to dive into deeper into this story. It's over at justthenews.com, ladies and gentlemen. You've got to check it out. This is the lead over there. Hunter Biden's 2017 rant about Burisma. I'm fighting for the only income I have left. John Solomon joins us here in the studio. I'm Raheem Kassar. Make sure you're heading over also to thenationalpulse.com/support if you like more of this. Oh, it's coming. You know, sometimes here in the studio, the bigwigs like to step in during the break just to congratulate you on what a great job you're doing and what a big pay rise you're getting. No, I'm kidding. Howard Diamond, the CEO, pops in just now. I show him my brand new Christmas mask. How about, I'm a big Christmas guy, so for me it's Christmas already. We actually launched a swag store on the National Pulse yesterday as well, nationalpulse.com/swag. If you want to get Where's Hunter masks, which I've already ordered mine of, nationalpulse.com/swag. I think we're going to put it up on screen here as well so you can see. Look at that beauty, eh? In the Joe Biden campaign style. Where is Hunter, by the way, John Solomon?
Nobody really knows. I mean, that's a big question for all of us. And
where's Joe, speaking of that?
Well, yeah, he's out occasionally. He shows up accidentally in Philadelphia for a few minutes or Pennsylvania, and then he's gone. But at some point, he's going to have to address this stuff head on. The stuff that's on this tape today, the email suggesting there's a 10% partnership, 50% of everything Hunter made during the years he was in office was going to do. He's got to come out and say it's either true or not.
Right.
And I think separately, some of these Senate committees, they've got to go further. They got to go get the bank records now and find out, was there an offshore account? Was there some secret investment fund that we yet do not know about? Because the money trail is still the broken part. We've got the storyline. Now we're going to find where the money went.
And that's the hardest part.
That is.
Because a lot of it is buried, and we don't know if it's in, it could be in Cyprus, could be in Dubai, could be in Bahrain, could be in any of these places that people squirrel money away.
That's right.
Right? And especially if you're dealing, look, your scoop is about the Hunter Biden fighting for the only income he has left. That's on justthenews.com. I want everybody to make sure you're clicking on that and sharing it. Make that go wild right now, especially when you're in that point in your life where it's the last vestige. You want to secure that away somewhere.
That's
if you've worked your whole life influence peddling and opening access for people. And here's the thing. These guys were clearly giving White House access. You saw the emails with Miguel Alemán from yesterday.
No doubt.
Dropped. They're peddling access into the White House, and Hunter Biden's getting resort villa stays and all of this. But here's the deal. You and I cannot get accredited to cover the Joe Biden campaign. And the journalists who are accredited to cover the Joe Biden campaign are simply not asking these questions. Yeah. So I want to say to everyone out there, and I wonder if you agree with me, it's the public's job now to figure out where Joe Biden's going to be and shout the questions at him from a distance.
Listen, that's one of the easiest and old-fashioned forms of political engagement. Go all the way back to the whistle-stop tours and the old Lincoln Douglas debates. The crowd was part of it. And just because the media is involved in a blackout now doesn't mean the voters have to be. And that's one of the great things about American society. There's 10 questions that Joe Biden has to answer, and we should start pressing him to answer them. There's no doubt.
So let's talk a little bit more about your story here, because it's a very in-depth story. You've got a bunch of PDFs embedded here. You know, this is real reporting, and this is proper long-form journalism that we're not seeing from anybody else right now. CNN's K-File is not on this. Right. Even Fox News isn't on this story.
No,
so what else are we to understand from Hunter Biden's, the desperation behind Hunter Biden's relationship?
You've done such a good job of showing what a calling card Hunter Biden's name was. You could get anything if you mentioned his name. In this meeting, there's a great anecdote. When Joe Biden is still in power, so he's the vice president, it's 2015, Hunter Biden's working for Burisma. He's landed them a Kazakhstan deal. Burisma, Ukraine company, doing neighboring, for the first time in their history, doing business with their neighbor, Kazakhstan, in the gas field. And the Kazakhs want to celebrate this. They're going to the United Nations meeting in New York, and no one from the Obama-Biden administration is planning to come to the celebration. Somebody makes a call at the last minute, and you know how schedules are for a United Nations meeting. They're made sometimes 10 days in advance.
Right.
We need to get someone here. They get the number 3 official, the Undersecretary for Energy, and they get her to attend, Catherine Novelli. It just shows the sort of swag and sway that Hunter Biden had throughout this entire process. And then as soon as his dad's out, all that's gone. The money's drying up, the access is gone, and he's sort of exposed for the sort of shallow character that he is. Without his dad, he's got no way to make money, no way to create influence.
You know, it's incredible to see. I mean, I know you guys are killing it at Just the News on these stories. We're doing our part as well over the National Post. The War Room is doing some as well. You know, you got Jack Posobiec and other guys who are digging into these things. Matthew Tierman, Peter Schweitzer, all digging into these things as well. But it's incredible because if even one of these nuggets concerned Donald Trump Jr., it would be leading the news cycle. It would be end-to-end
24/7 breaking news banners on all the main networks.
They'd have people camped outside his house.
They would.
You know, and that's just not happening here. So I want to understand from you, because I do believe that this is making an impact out there. I think we saw for the first time today in the Trafalgar poll, Donald Trump take over Joe Biden in Pennsylvania. Do you think these stories are making a difference?
Well, we had a poll at Just the News last week that said a supermajority, almost 60% of Americans, thought that Joe Biden had allowed a conflict of interest to exist in his family, presiding over things while his son cashed in on him. That means that somehow, despite this incredible filter of the media, the social media censorship, these stories are getting around. And they get around because of sites like yours and this great television network. And, you know, every day the president talking about it. I think they have, and Rudy Giuliani, I think it's seeping in and showing that the old funnel that was the media has been broken. We can now go around the funnel. We can even get around Facebook and Twitter and get a story out. And that tells you the American people's concern. They want to know more about this. And we just got to keep delivering. We got to keep giving them facts. Let them make up their own mind.
Look, I got to tell you, I'm very transparent with my audience about the way this all works. The site traffic right now to the National Polls, which is extraordinary. I'm looking at the live numbers on my screen. The majority of the traffic is coming from Zero Hedge, the Bongino Report, the Liberty Daily, Citizen Free Press, and Revolver News. You know, we don't need these big entities or organizations. John, do you want to break some news with me on air here as well? I know you haven't seen this, but I want to show you this. Okay, so Cindy McCain has endorsed Joe Biden, right? Let's see what the Biden campaign people have said privately about John McCain. Let's load up clip number 1 here. This is breaking news. We're going to break this on the air today. So here you see Eric Schwerin, Hunter Biden, Beau Biden, Senator Ted Kaufman, and Alexander Snyder Mackler on the same email chain about John McCain. And they say, I know we've had many chances to say this since 2008, but what an a-hole. Let's load up number 2 here as well so that people can really see what's behind all of this. The same email chain. Can I just reiterate that he said, totally unqualified. They're talking about John McCain's perspective on an Obama appointee. Not that he disagrees with Tony on policy and is going to vote against him, but so much unqualified he is going to put a hold on for a moment. Such a cranky old man. And let's hit number 3 up here as well, why don't we? Eric Schwerin, this causes me to despise John McCain even more than I already do. Did he really say Tony was totally unqualified? What do you reckon?
Well, if you're a Democrat and you embrace John McCain, it isn't that long ago when John McCain and the Democrats were really enemies and always at loggerheads.
But if you're Cindy McCain and you've just done this whole thing about how, the Biden campaign is so good to my husband and he says such wonderful things, and Joe Biden came out, remember, and said, oh, it's terrible what Trump said about McCain. That's his campaign co-chair on that email.
There's not any doubt that they despised McCain until he was a useful tool after death to try to lure votes away from Donald Trump. That's all this is about. It's old-fashioned politics, and the McCain family should know better.
John Solomon, thank you so much for your time. We're going to let you go and keep breaking the news.
Thank you, Raheem. Good job.
Thank you. JustTheNews.com, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to go to a quick break now. When we come back, Natalie Winters will join us. Scoops McGee herself will be back in just a moment. Welcome back to the National Pulse. I love my new Christmas mask. I'm not selling them, by the way. I just love it so much. I wanted to show you all. It just arrived in the mail today. So, can you hear that? I'm starting to become Americanized, say mail instead of post. It came in the post from the postman. Look, welcome back. As you can probably tell, there is so much going on at the moment. We are working just like dogs to try and get as much information out as humanly possible, all hours of the day. Natalie's writing until, sometimes 3 p.m. 3 a.m. Sorry, yeah, 3 a.m. I'm listening to, I've got the Amy Coney Barrett confirmation on one screen, and I'm listening to Hunter Biden's most genius S ever in my ears, and Natalie's doing the transcription, and we're just trying to get as much info out as possible. But you see now why I said a couple of days ago, trust us, we've got this, and we're dropping more and more by day. And by the way, it's not just us. I want to give credit to the War Room team, to Jack Maxey, to Jack Posobiec, to so many of the other people who are breaking the news on this. We just had John Solomon on, and he's just a beast on all of this stuff. Just the News is just one of the best websites out there. So I know I rushed through that last little nugget that we dropped in the last segment, but I just wanted to get John Solomon's reaction to that live because he hadn't seen it before. We haven't actually showed it to anyone else before. It's not on the site before. As a testament to how much we respect and revere you guys, the audience of this show, we wanted to give it to you first. So that's breaking news from this. And I know it's not a huge scoop, but it's a little nugget that shows you the mind and the workings of these scumbags here in Washington, D.C. So we're going to reset. Now that Natalie's in studio after her most genius appearance with Rudy Giuliani, Natalie, tell the audience where you just were. Why we had to draft John Solomon in at the last second.
I was over in a cubicle somewhere over there talking to Mayor Rudy Giuliani, talking about the story we have up today on the National Pulse, and I'll briefly summarize what we talked about, although it's probably self-explanatory.
Okay.
But what I said is that we have, I think, the smoking gun to end all smoking guns when you look at the audio recording that we have up on the site. And that's for two, probably three primary reasons. One, it completely undercuts the mainstream media's narrative that this laptop is a hoax, that this laptop is fake, that it's Russian disinformation, because you have Hunter Biden, in his own words, talking about business deals that only Hunter Biden would have known about. The second really incriminating thing that we have in the story today is the fact that Hunter Biden openly admits that he was in business with, quote, a spy chief in China, which...
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I mean, there's so much...
Okay, I'll go ahead. Since you flubbed your line, isn't this... By the way, I'm just doing to you what Steve does to me every morning. Isn't this now... Shouldn't this be investigated by, like, the Secret Service and, the Senate Intelligence Committee? What spy chief was the vice president's son in partnership with? He says partner. My partner, the spy chief.
So he appears to be referencing Patrick Ho, but
it's not clear.
But it's not totally clear. There's some intelligible comments in the recording.
Guys, should we play it again and then we can go through this? Because this is we told you yesterday. I told you yesterday. If you're an avid watcher of the show, I said, watch for the voice memos. Did I deliver or what? And Natalie, did Natalie deliver or what? Let's run the clip again of Hunter Biden's audio.
I get calls from my father to tell me that the New York Times is calling, but my old partner Eric, who literally has done me harm for I don't know how long, is the one taking the calls because my father will not stop sending the calls to Eric. I have another New York Times reporter calling about my representation of literally, Dr. Patrick Ho, the spy chief of China, who started the company that my partner, who was worth $323 billion, found it and is now missing. The richest man in the world is missing, who was my partner. He was missing since I last saw him in his $58 million apartment and signed a $4 billion deal to build the largest LNG port in the world. And I am receiving calls from the Southern District of New York, from the U.S. Attorney himself. My best friend in business, Devin, has named me as a witness without telling me in a criminal case, and my father without telling me.
The son of the Vice President of the United States confessing to working with a Chinese Communist Party spy chief. Somebody in production, tell me, is this leading on CNN right now? This has got to be leading on CNN, right? The New York Times must be preparing a front page story on this, right? Maggie Haberman has got to be working on this, right? Anybody? Anybody? Or is the media going to continue to lie, cheat, and obfuscate and cover up what appears to be a major national security related crime on behalf of Hunter Biden? Natalie, it speaks for itself. Or I wish it spoke for itself more clearly, but it speaks for itself. He's talking about this Chinese spy chief, but it's not very clear if he's talking about Patrick Ho, if he's talking about somebody else. He says the richest man in the world who was my partner, he's missing. We were building the largest LNG port in the world. The SDNY is coming after me. Devin Archer's ratted me and my dad out as witnesses in a criminal case.
Well, as the son of a vice president, I don't think you want to be anywhere near gray area surrounding the nature of what Chinese spy chief you're working with. And again, I think that this completely denigrates Joe Biden's security clearances that he has held, that he could hold as president, when you see his son openly admitting to being in business with someone who's not only running China's spy agency, which again, what they do to their own people is reprehensible, but how they are actively engaged in espionage, both covert and overt, over here in the United States. Certainly an interesting financial arrangement, talking about a point of leverage that could be potentially used or could have been used over Hunter Biden, or really just, I mean, I think it's a point of leverage, objectively.
Of course it's a point of leverage. Of course it's a point of leverage. I mean, is this, by the way, is this why Hunter has now rented this $2,300 a night luxury mansion in the Pacific Palisades and he's holed up there? Is that where Hunter is?
It's maybe that, or maybe it's because his long-term business partner and supposed best friend was allegedly ratting him and his father out to the Southern District of New York for being a witness in a potential criminal case. Again, we've seen no media reporting on that. We've tried to source and cross-reference per SDNY records to see what potential case they could be talking about, because there's so many transactions from this hard drive. That could be the potential case that they're talking about, but we have no idea. The media seems to have no interest in pursuing any leads. They won't even cover the story, let alone play this recording on air.
Look, guys, about 400 people have gone to the nationalpulse.com/support because they know this costs money to do it, time, resources, staffing. Have you done it yet? Fundrealnews.com. Do it in the break. It helps. Okay, welcome back to the National Pulse. A different camera angle here, and here's why. We're going to break some more news live for you here. I know the audience, you watch Real America's Voice and you think, oh, this is a new network, this is pretty cool. I want to show you what's going on right here. Harry, let's flip the camera on. We're building a whole new set just in the next hallway, which you're going to start seeing more shows from. Look at that disco floor. How cool does that look? I cannot wait to do shows from there. There's going to be a whole new studio there. There's another production suite that's coming in. These guys are plowing so much time, money, effort, working morning, noon, and night to make sure that this network is just the best network for you. And we're just so grateful to be on here. And I just wanted to show the audience that. We didn't actually plan to do that. I just wanted to show the audience what's going on here in the Real America's Voice studios, downtown Washington, D.C. Natalie Winters joins me here in studio. Back to the news here. That's the media news. Here's the political news. I want to hit you with this once more because I know we blitzed through it with John Solomon. Let's put number one up here, the email. Now this, Natalie, just explain to us. Ted Kaufman is who?
So Ted Kaufman was the Senate successor of Joe Biden in 2009 as he departed the Senate from Delaware to join the White House as vice president. Ted Kaufman was his hand-picked successor. He now serves as a co-chair of the Biden transition team. And this, I think, again, is a common theme that we kind of addressed yesterday. But a lot of the individuals who are in these emails, who are in these business deals, they're not figments of the past. They're very much still in the present, whether they're affiliated with the Biden team, still through these business deals, or in most cases, they are still somehow linked to the campaign. For example, Steve Ricchetti, who was looped into some of the emails we discussed yesterday, just like Ted Kaufman, he has a similarly high-level position on the campaign. So Ted Kaufman is on this email thread. You have the late Beau Biden on this thread. You have Hunter Biden, along with Eric Schwerin, whose Twitter account is now and still locked, and Alexander Snyder Mackler, who served as deputy counsel to Vice President Biden at the time.
So what we're saying is these are people who are both very close to Joe Biden and also leading on the Biden campaign.
Yeah, they're still around. They're still very, very, very present. So you have these 5 individuals on the thread, and but the only people who actually type on the thread are Eric Schwerin and Alexander Mackler, and they have some choice words about Senator John McCain. Again, this is coming on the heels of John McCain's late wife publicly, very publicly endorsing Biden over Trump. Yet in secret, the Biden team, the Biden camp, doesn't seem to have the nicest words to say about the late senator, whether it's calling him an a-hole, talking about how much they despise him, or talking about how he's a, quote, cranky old man. John McCain does not appear to be in good standing with those of the Biden camp.
You know, you go through this hard drive and you realize just how much Eric Schwerin likes swearing.
Preordained.
Preordained, exactly. Look, there's so much more to go through on this, Natalie. We're going to be joined by Dave Reboy in the next segment as well, talking about his just extraordinary broadside against Senator Lindsey Graham, one of John McCain's old friends, in fact. But just before we go to that, we've got 4 minutes left in this segment. I want to take a step back and talk to the audience about what else we're looking at here. What are you going through? What are you looking for? I'll volunteer first. How about keyword search the names of the impeachment witnesses? That's something that's going to be interesting if any of them are in there.
And even searching for the word impeachment themselves, or itself rather, it's very interesting. We'll definitely look up Marie Yovanovitch, Fiona Hill, George Kent, all those household names who I'm sure somehow there will be some connection. So we're looking into that. As always, I'm digging the China angle. That's personally my favorite. It's really interesting to just search China into the laptop, and the search return, the query that is returned, is just massive. As you say, it requires so much manpower to go through this drive, but the results are definitely well worth the effort.
Hey guys, just because I introduced you doing making the set out there, that doesn't mean you can get louder. You found something on the drive this morning, which was, it's not a news story. What was it about Hillary Clinton?
An individual, a DC lobbyist type. I'll get the name of the guy for tomorrow's show, or we can maybe play the clip tomorrow. But he emails Hunter Biden saying, please have your dad run, and the email's dated from 2016. And then the individual follows up the email with, and knock her teeth out, ostensibly referencing Hillary Clinton. Do you know what Hunter Biden responds to the email thread? Ha. Ha.
Ha. Knock Hillary's teeth out. Ha. This is the way these people are. You know, they pretend to be so nice to your face. Oh, John McCain, love him, respected, veteran, a-hole, cranky old man, despise him, knock Hillary's teeth out, ha. Can you imagine if these were found on Donald Trump Jr.'s device?
Well, and they think the same about individuals who support Trump. I believe you referenced the email on War Room a few days back, but there's an email thread between an NBC reporter, a lot of the Biden grandchildren, and Valerie Biden Owens, who's Joe Biden's sister, talking about how Finnegan Biden allegedly made fun of a Trump supporter, totally destroyed his arguments, although I find that hard to believe. This was during a lecture at Penn, and you see the family, the entire family, all the way down to the around teenage-age grandchildren, really making fun of the fact that they had embarrassed this Trump supporter. Oh,
you know what was a funny one as well? We're gonna tweet all these out, I think, because they're not worthy of like whole news stories on the site. But we want everybody to be able to see these. Making fun of the DC press corps. They're making fun of the DC press corps that is currently now running cover for them. Think about how what soy boys, how little sense of self-worth the DC press corps has to have, that you've got these people joking in their emails, Hunter Biden's emails, saying, haha, look, the panda's given birth, so maybe the DC press corps will have something else to cover now instead of Donald Trump. It's hilarious to watch these people make fun of the DC media, and the DC media just running after them like sycophants and the lapdogs and the running dogs that they are. We've got a whole lot more to come from this whole thing, and we are working around the clock to make it happen. I want to thank everybody who's new to this show. I can see the numbers increasing by the day. I want to thank you for joining us. We break real news here every day on this show. We break it over at thenationalpulse.com. We break it in the War Room in the mornings at 10 a.m. You've got the best shows here on this network, whether it's Actionable Intelligence with Eric Greitens, whether it's America's Voice Live, whether it's News On, all of the Studio 6B. This is the network to be viewing right now. This is the one to favorite. This is where you go. You get to Apple TV, you get to Pluto, you get to Roku. You can favorite this channel. And by the way, I really like the app. If you haven't tried this, if you have an Apple TV or a Roku device or whatever it is, download the America's Voice app. What it does is it gives you the in-feed, but it also gives you the breaking news, the little pull-out clips by the side, so you can catch up with anything you've missed. So make sure you go and you download the app, Roku, Apple TV, etc. We'll be back with Dave Reboy, more breaking news. And Merry Christmas from me, because I don't care if it's too early. After this break. Someone you don't want to get on the wrong side of is Dave Reboy. Dave and I have known each other for a long time. He's a prolific writer, a Claremonster like myself. Those are fellows of the Claremont Institute, of which we can't sing enough praise of. The folks over there, Ryan Williams, Matthew Peterson, and the whole rest of the gang, are just incredible resource. One of the things, I get a lot of questions, by the way, and Dave, welcome to the show, by the way. Dave, I get a lot of questions, people saying to me, hey, Raheem, how are you so smart? And I say, if you can believe it, and I say, it's all Claremont Review of Books. You just consume the Claremont Review of Books. It makes you super smart. Am I right?
You're absolutely right. It's a great time of year when it comes, and it's wonderful. I mean, I find that I started reading it actually in New York shortly after 9/11. I was a poor jazz musician. And I walked into the Tower Records and browsing the magazine section, and I just started reading, and I fell in love immediately.
It's such a great resource, and it's cheap as well. It's like $6.95 or something for an entire quarterly volume. I think it represents. See, I mean, here's the thing, Dave. There's just so little in terms of intellectual heft on the political right. Everybody's just churning out quick blog post news items. I'm guilty of that myself. But the Claremont Review of Books is not just incredible resource, but it's incredibly well edited. Anyway, we're going off on a tangent here. I just think it's worth singing their praises every so often.
No, and I have to say also, as far as the editing goes, I've had some pieces in there, and I've never been more pleased with Bill Vogel's editing. So it's just fantastic.
They won't have me in. They say I'm too boorish for their high esteemed
Makes
audience.
sense.
They are absolutely correct. Dave, speaking of boorish, you let the beast out yesterday on American Greatness. Your article, South Carolina voters appear ready to end the failure theater. I want to quote from this here. Lindsey Graham is trying to kill a measure to protect Americans from cyber attack because one of his biggest donors, the government of Qatar, has given him marching orders to kill it. Enough already. Dave, that is an extraordinary charge. How do you back it up? So
Qatar has, for the last several years, gone into South Carolina in a pretty deep way. It started when they hired Nick Muzzin, who is used to be on Ted Cruz's staff, but who has deep roots in South Carolina due to his family in South Carolina Republican politics specifically. He worked for Tim Scott, and he's a big shot over there. While he's no longer representing Qatar officially, as far as FARA goes, Muzzin was instrumental in bringing the Qataris to South Carolina. And the first thing that they did was open a huge military aircraft plant outside of Charleston. They've been moving billions of dollars into South Carolina, and every South Carolina politician has either been approached or has gotten a taste. Lindsey Graham is sort of the most flamboyant one, and you can tell because he used to be pretty happy with the Saudi monarchy, and then as soon as Qatar came knocking, he became MBS's biggest critic. He has always been, he's always been pro Brotherhood in the sense that, hey, we need to make a deal with the Brotherhood guys who are not really the Al-Qaeda type jihadis. So he and John McCain have wanted to arm several Brotherhood linked groups. So it kind of makes sense for him to be a Qatari stooge. And this case that you brought up, exactly right, is you have a really important piece of legislation that in this day and age is bipartisan, which is kind of bonkers if you think about it. Co-sponsors from Matt Gaetz to AOC types, sort of spanning the whole gamut of ideology in the U.S. Congress. And what the HACT Act does is it allows for citizens and institutions based in the United States to sue hackers that are tied to foreign countries. Because right now, if you get hacked, and you get hacked by Iran, let's say, you can't sue Iran because there's a Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act, and that's it. They are like because you can't sue a foreign country, so they may as well be like UN employees or diplomatic corps employees that can't get parking tickets. So really what this does is this incentivizes hackers to work with state groups.
But Dave, all of these politicians, Dave, are always telling us that we've got to protect the U.S. and our elections and protect it from foreign interference and all of this stuff. Are you telling me that for the last couple of decades or however long this foreign immunities thing has been going on, that this has just been lip service? They only care when it's aimed at their elections, the way the politicians get power. They don't care when it's me or you being hacked by a foreign government?
Well, yes and no. They care to the extent that that it becomes a major political issue, and then it becomes a subject for executive branch action. So, sort of the critics of this, and what Lindsey Graham will say for why he's opposing this, is he's saying, you know what, this is just another thing that DOJ can take care of on your behalf, and maybe it'll form a line item in some negotiation somewhere with a foreign country saying, oh, by the way, you need to deliver restitution for that time you hacked these 200 people. But in lieu of that, you really have no restitution whatsoever. So what this does is this puts it into this gives the individuals and institutions, for example, colleges, companies, things like
Dave,
that.
hold your thought right there. We've got to go to a quick break. We're going to hold you over, Dave. I want to hear about that. I want to hear about the colleges. But I'm just fascinated about Lindsey Graham's position in all of this and why. Because for a long time it felt like Lindsey Graham was coming around to the good side. And as you say in the opening line of your piece, some panicky pollsters in South Carolina Republican pollsters are just becoming so disgusted with the theater and no action from this senator. And I'm interested in passing this out. Dave Reboy returns. Raheem Kassam, the National Poll. Stick around. We'll be right back. We'll be rejoined by Dave Reboy in just a moment. I'm going to quote you from his piece here. And it's extraordinary when you think about it. 2016 seems so far away now. But what did Lindsey Graham say about President Trump in 2016? He said, what is Donald Trump's campaign about? He's race-baiting, xenophobic, religious bigot. You know how to make America great again. Tell Donald Trump to go to hell. And what did he say about Joe Biden? He said, if you can't admire Joe Biden as a person, then you've got a problem. He said, Biden is as good a man as God ever created, and the nicest person I think I've ever met in politics. Dave Reboy joins us down the line now. Dave, remember we were told that there was this new, cool, turning point endorsed Lindsey Graham, and he, gave 0 Fs now, and he's somebody that we can all trust. But it always seems to be talk with that guy. He always said, yeah, we're going to look into the foreign collusion stuff. We're going to get everybody. Don't worry about it. My committee, we're going to look into it. We'll call everybody up one day. I still remember back in the impeachment days when Jack Maxey bumped into him down at another network studio and was like, hey, Senator, what are we doing here? He's like, yeah, we got this, man. Don't worry about it. Nothing's happened. Very little has happened. Nobody's facing accountability. And the same thing with this. What are these Republican pollsters in South Carolina telling you, Dave? And re-intro that bit you were going to tell us about the colleges, just to make that analogy.
Sure. Well, Lindsey Graham has sort of figured out the recipe for how to stay alive in politics, representing a red state, which is that he goes on Sean Hannity's show and he is very quotable. He's very energetic when the cameras are on. He loves the lights. He loves the cameras and the attention. And hey, you can get a great soundbite out of him, looking indignant and telling, trying to convince the conservative voters in his state that he's a real fighter. I mean, the guy is anything but a fighter. And he is always AWOL on the most important questions, especially when it comes to national security issues, which he talks a big game about, but it's really quite vapid. A lot of people may not really get this. I know that you do because you spend a lot of time in D.C. and on the Hill. But who members of Congress and senators have for staff makes a really, really big deal. And it's not, if only more South Carolina voters and more American conservatives would understand who Lindsey Graham has working for him, who are fighting folks like Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley and Tom Cotton on every step of the way, on legislation, on investigations, on everything you can think of. And so it's really, I mean, he's really an establishment Republican par excellence, who's just every once in a while, every 6 years, he's got to get reelected, and he goes and he performs for the conservative voters in South Carolina. And amazingly, because of open primaries, he seems to slide through. So this time, I think that South Carolina Republicans should be voting for Bill Bledsoe, who's frankly still on the ballot, and he was the Constitution Party candidate. And we have to send a message. We have to send a message to the Republican Party, because they've been engaged in failure theater really for decades. But this round has really been since Benghazi. You have a lot of high-profile investigations. You have a lot of, they rile up the conservative base that they're going to demand action on corruption, on scandals, on this and on that. And at the end of the day, nothing ever happens. No one is ever held accountable. There are investigations that are televised, but it ends up being nothing. It always ends up being nothing. And the people who are sort of deep state, which is, deep state, I think Lindsey Graham would be very offended by my use of the term. But all the deep state really means is the national security professionals working in the administrative state.
Yeah.
And those guys are the ones that Lindsey Graham really works for. Well, those guys and the Qataris.
Dave, look, we're going to bounce in just a moment. I want everybody to understand where they can get the latest from you. Obviously, American Greatness, that's amgreatness.com is where your article is. We're going to make sure we share it out as well again here. Where can they follow you on social media, Dave?
They can follow me on Twitter at Dave Raboy, at DaveReaboi.
All right, Dave, again, thanks for your time. We're going to have you back on the show soon.
Thank you, my friend.
I want to make sure we run out of time here on the show all the time. It just goes so quickly, especially, look, you got an all-star cast here today. You got John Solomon, you got Dave Reboy, you got Raheem Kassam, you got Natalie Winters. He sits here quietly while I conduct the other interviews. Natalie, I just realized that some days ago I bought the domain BidenLeak.com. Now, Biden Leaks was gone, but BidenLeak.com, it actually sounds like one of the pictures on his thing, Biden Leak. But BidenLeak.com, you get it? You got it? You take a minute? BidenLeak.com now refers and forwards on to the latest story. What I'm going to try and do for the audience out there, here's the thing. You do me a favor, I'll do you a favor. It's all quid pro quo between me and the audience here, okay?
Are you the big guy?
I'm the big guy. We make it very easy for you to follow along with these stories, right? We do our best to make sure that you're getting the breaking news, and we're staying up till all hours, and when we're writing this stuff, it's, you know, my pleasure and our pleasure to do that for you. But we do want something in return. And that is that you share this out as much as possible. So we try and make it easy for that to happen. I'm going to put together an aggregate site of all of the articles that we're breaking. Everything tagged Biden that the National Pulse has reported, we're going to have it on one page. For now, BidenLeak.com goes to our latest scoop. But keep that domain favorited. Keep that domain written down somewhere, okay? BidenLeak.com is about to be the aggregate source of all of this information. So BidenLeak.com, and we want you to share it out there. That's all I ask. We're going to be back tomorrow with, guess what? More from the hard drive from hell. Have a nice day.